Go ahead.
Yeah, he did, like I said, it'll be in the affidavit, but he did fly into Providence, I believe, early October, I believe. That's the right date. And what was the other question? I'm sorry, Steph.
And did he buy the guns here, or where did he get the guns?
So I'm sorry, I can't answer you.
We don't know the answer to that, Steph, as we stand here right now.
Okay, you can't fly with them, so assuming he got them sometime after he arrived.
Well, that's possible. What we do know is that he was moving around New England in that October, November, and December area. You remember, we just we know that there's a body in New Hampshire. We know that there are guns at the scene. It still remains to be examined, comparing those guns to the ballistics evidence we have in Rhode Island, and I imagine they'll do that in Massachusetts, but again, that's somebody else's investigation. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we match the DNA. But we are 100% confident that this is our target, and that this case is closed from a perspective of pursuing people involved.
And Steph, just to add, I think Special Agent Doug stated, obviously we didn't know who he was. And so it's very difficult to know what a person did prior without any knowledge of who that person is.
Dan. Can I just ask Special Agent this question? It sounds like from everything everybody's saying that the person who came forward to speak to you is as a hero in this story in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
We know that there's a $50,000 reward. Did he get the reward?
You know, I would say that in this particular situation, that individual will likely get absolutely some aspect of that award. We've had a lot of other tips, I will tell you as well, that have come in from the public. And so I don't deal typically with the distribution of those rewards. But I mean, it would be logical to think that absolutely that individual would be entitled to some of that reward. Yes, sir.
Second row, red shirt. Go ahead. Yeah, you.
Thank you. Do we know when or how the suspect left Providence? For the colonel.
Well, we know he left Providence and committed a homicide in another state. On that, but we don't know. I'm sorry. How did he leave?
No, do we know when he left Providence?
Yeah, when he left. That's what. As far as we know, that he left, but we didn't. I believe his last activity was obviously when we found out he was in another state committing another crime.
Pat.
Pat Ford, Coalition Radio. I'll throw this out to all of you, with particular regards to the Rhode Island University president. A recurring theme for the last few days has been an outreach, ultimately successful, to the people of Rhode Island and the people of New England to track this individual down. While at the same time, we've got this sort of passive-aggressive criticism of individuals who are being actively asked to engage via social media, who are wildly spreading rumors, some of which couldn't have possibly emanated anywhere than law enforcement. And I do have a follow-up. So does anyone like to respond to that? I mean, it's kind of condescending to a lot of people. I know, Governor Key, you're confused. That's not uncommon. But all
right, that's uncalled for. Right. We're moving on. Current.
Can we come over here then?
No,
the person
current.
Who came forward with the case-breaking tip, was that information originally posted online, or was that person encouraged to come forward based on what people online?
Correct. There was a tip that was placed online, and obviously we were doing our due diligence to find out who that tipster was, and then we were able to identify this person who we wanted to speak with, and then we learned that that person was actually the same person that put the tip on that up that you're speaking about.
Brian.
I'm sorry?
Does that person live in the area?
It was the same person that we brought into the police station to speak with.
The images
Brian.
that you showed at the beginning, where you can see Mr. Valente's face, where were those images taken from?
They were taken from the car rental business place that we learned about.
None of them were Brown.
No.
President Paxson, if you could, the situation is described that you had the suspected gunman and this other person had an encounter in the engineering building hours before the shooting. I had been told by an employee that there had been concerns raised at Brown previously about people getting in the building. Have you heard those, and was anything done to address those concerns about people getting into the building?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think we're going to have to look back and say, you know, we don't know how this person got in. We don't know when they came in. We do know that the building was unlocked that day for exams, and that's something we're going to have to look into.
Had you heard concerns from staff members in the past?
I have not personally heard concerns, but yeah.
Dan.
President Paxton, Dan Jay from NBC 10. I want to go back to the question I asked you Saturday night when I first arrived on the scene. There were no cameras in this building. And law enforcement, some that are standing up behind you, have said if Brown had cameras in that part of the building, we would have gotten this guy. And it may have stopped this swirling action. Can you answer that question for me?
Well, I don't think we have said the locations of cameras at Brown. We have
There's no cameras in that building because why would they take it from a rental car agency?
We have 1,200 cameras at Brown.
But not in that building.
We have some in that building. It's a large complex. And I think what you would see is the video evidence in this case, from my perspective, I'm not a law enforcement agent, has been incredibly helpful. The moving of the person around the neighborhood, those video images, they help crack this case. So I think video was important. And as the Attorney General explained at a recent press conference, this individual was not spending his time on the Brown campus. He came into a building on the edge of the campus. He left. He was in the neighborhoods. The investigation focused on the neighborhoods. The video was there. And that was really, really instrumental in cracking the case. But you can ask them.
And this is my follow-up, Madam President, if you'd say at the podium. Yes, video played a big role in this case. The neighbor's video, the rental car video, but not the video from the building that he walked in freely both before when he got in a confrontation and when he came back in and decided to kill people. You didn't have cameras in that building. Just say it so we can get this over it. And my next question is, will you put cameras in the building?
Yeah.
Will there be more cameras in that building?
Yeah, you know, I think we need to look back. We'll look at everything that is done, but I do not think a lack of cameras in that building it had anything to do with what happened there. Right. And we will go forward. Thank you.
Tom.
Tom Quinlan, WPRO. Colonel Perez, I'm hearing from sources that the person that identified the shooter happened to be a homeless person that either lived around or inside that Farris and Holly building. Can you confirm more about this person for us? And then I have a follow-up for President Paxton.
I'll tell you there was a person that was pretty attentive about his surroundings. I'll tell you there was a person that was very cooperative and helpful to this investigation. And I'll tell you that he was a great individual that actually assisted us in getting us to this point where we're at. I'll tell you that. He was, yes.
I have to say, he was incredibly articulate, and his testimony, had we needed it, would not only have been credible, it would have been persuasive. He was as outstanding a witness as I've seen, and he deserves a lot of credit. You know, recognizing there's a gunman on the loose, that the gunman knows he had this interaction with him, and he didn't. Once he knew that we were looking for his help, I mean, he came forward within an hour, and that person deserves a tremendous amount of credit. I don't know whether he's going to get the reward or not, but if I had a vote, he would.
All right, Tom, you got to follow. Are you done? Go ahead.
My question was for Chair Chapman, if you wouldn't mind. In October, the Brown Daily Herald reported that you had voted no confidence in your leadership, and students were concerned for their safety and the fact that you had prioritised desk jobs over having over field jobs and having more people patrolling the campus. Now, in light of this, do you accept any kind of responsibility for this? And now that we've given these prior warnings, are you going to reevaluate how the Brown police operate in the future now, so this doesn't happen again and these students can feel more safe on campus when they return?
Right. So as I stated earlier, I'm profoundly proud of the men and women of public safety and profoundly proud of our police department. We will continue with the heroic work that they've done and continue to work side by side with our partners. And everything else that comes with that is a continual effort to do what is best for the safety and security of our campus.
But will you reassess how the people are allocated within your department?
Every single day, we work and endeavor to keep our campus safe, whatever that entails and all that entails.
In the back.
Yes, Kimberly. I was wondering, maybe this is a question for the Colonel. Can you talk about, you said that
two weapons were found in Valencia's car. Is that one of those weapons, the gun that was used to shoot here at Brown? Has that weapon been found? Can you speak to that?
That's all part of this continuing investigation. This just before we came downstairs, actually, as you're watching, that was developing up in Salem, New Hampshire.
And can you say whether or not that the weapons were purchased?
Hold on a second.
Yeah, those firearms were found at the deceased body, not in a car. So he killed himself inside the storage unit, and the firearms were found at his in the area of his thigh and in the area of his feet. It was not in a car. There was evidence that was observed from outside the car that matched our crime scenes, meaning mask, clothing, satchel, which you can see on that video. And there was a main plate over a Florida plate. This guy was changing plates. One of the reasons it was so hard to find was he knew what he was doing. He was changing plates. And so, that's why the collective work of following and finding this car was made more difficult because this guy was changing plates. So we got a main plate and we got a Florida plate on the same car in New Hampshire.
Patrick.
As he was a...
Oh, I'm sorry. Especially,
I was just going to add.
please. Tom Greco again from ATF. It's okay. As far as the ballistics evidence, I know that the last question concerned matching the guns found to the crime scene. As several people up here have said, this investigation is ongoing, and in many ways, in some ways, just beginning. So those weapons that were found at the scene, we will be using our tools such as NIBIN to compare the ballistic evidence to see if we have any matches. So we use those tools to rule things in and to rule them out as well. So we'll be following up on that throughout the remainder of the investigation. Patrick.
Neves Valente was a Portuguese national. Under what status was he in the country, and how did he get into the country? Do we know at this point? I have a follow-up after that.
You have that, Oscar?
Yeah, I do. So as far as we know, he had a student visa. He had came in here with a student visa, and we also had learned that he had applied to get a green card.
Do we know, sorry, I have a question for President Paxson. Does Brown have
And Patrick, if I could just be clear on that, he got that lawful permanent resident status in September of 2017.
Thank you. I was going to ask, but then, and for President Paxson, has Brown had any communication from Neves Valente in the period after he left until now?
As far as I know, no. He has really gone off our radar. We will continue to cooperate with the police as they continue with the investigation to find anything we can find about him. But his last class that he took at Brown was in 2001.
Straight back. Let's skip one.
This question's for the Colonel or the Attorney General. If you hadn't focused on the wrong person of interest on day one, do you think the professor in Massachusetts could be alive?
Well, from the beginning, I've told you that this investigation is extremely complex and intense. And so we used every resource as soon as we responded to the call. I stated that earlier. I'm proud of the men and women of this department. Yes, we did find somebody that we thought obviously was the person, but we continued on. We continued on investigating. We continued on canvassing the areas. We continued on with video. And that's why we ended up where we're at now.
Yeah, if I could just jump in here, I just want to continue to answer that question. It's an important one, and the answer to that is this. And I tried to convey it a couple of days ago. We broke ourselves out into teams. So while the Providence team and the state police team and the ATF team were working here in Providence to follow up leads, develop whatever video evidence we can, which eventually led to all the steps that you've seen and are laid out in the affidavit, which is on our website, and it is multiple pages. You'll see the progression. So while the FBI were working Coventry, we were working here. Now, you may ask, well, what was it about Coventry that made us, for those of us who've been in law enforcement for a long time, why did we have to run that lead to ground? Here's why. When the FBI confronted him, initially, he was not cooperative. When they entered the room to secure it, there were guns in the room. One of them had a laser sight. The witnesses had told us there was a laser sight used in the course of the attack. Okay, we had to run that to ground. We couldn't just, not run that to ground. That was a very promising lead. But that's why you don't get over your skis about and word choice is important. So while we had to test those ballistics and test the DNA off those guns, and that DNA ruled this guy out, okay? But we had to run that lead to ground. But while we're running that lead to ground over the course of Sunday, for the most part, my memory's correct, we were working other leads, which eventually led us through a recreation by the great work of the team, including the marshals, by the way, that are up here. Movements, image of our cooperating witness, witness comes in, and you've heard the rest. So, this is the way these investigations work. You don't chase one and stop. We have chased more than one lead over the course of the last 4 to 5 days. There was one lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. There was another lead that we followed, didn't work out. So that's, at least in my mind, 5 different leads that one worked out, 4 didn't. But you're running them all down at the same time. So I can't offer any comfort in that regard, but I don't believe that we would have found this person any sooner, given the evidence that was available to us.
The way back.
Can you say why it took so long to get the tipster's tip? It looks like he posted on Reddit on Monday, and then said on Reddit that he told the FBI. Was it lost in the FBI's tip?
We received the tip about that post and immediately acted on it. And so that's exactly what occurred. As soon as the tip came in, we had a tip center upstairs that was staffed, as I mentioned earlier, by detectives and agents. They were going through hundreds of tips that were coming in, hundreds. We were vetting them through, ruling them out, just like the general stated. We were making sure that whatever came in, we checked it to its entire to ensure that we weren't missing anything. And so when we got to that tip, obviously, it led us to that person that we wanted to speak with, and I told you the rest earlier. So.
Yeah, and I just want to complete that too, because this is important. This person had to come forward. That's why we put the picture out. Once we put the picture out, he came forward, right? But we didn't know who that person was. We knew about what was on Reddit, but we didn't know who that person was. That's why when we identified another person, we didn't know when that person came forward that he was the Reddit poster. He then told us he was. Okay, so all of these things kind of happened in that sequence.
Chris?
This Valente figure, this is a question for President Paxson. Do we know why he left school early in 2001? Did he have a history of mental illness that was expressed during that time or recorded in that time?
No, we learned his name very, very recently, and we haven't had a chance to really dig into the records. But we will if it helps with the investigation.
This is another question about
a follow-up question.
This is another question about a student visa. You said he's here on a student visa now. What school is he affiliated with? He's here, so he's not here.
General view.
Yeah. So he's not here on a student visa now. He was initially, and then he applied for and received lawful permanent resident status in September of 2017. Okay.
Thank you. Go right here.
What was Mr. Valente's profession, and how did you search his residence?
Again, as I stated earlier, we just identified who obviously that person, and this developed pretty quickly. So that's all part of the investigation that's coming.
And can you talk about, was there any interaction between him and law enforcement before he died?
No, not that we know.
I have a follow-up to her.
There you go.
Do you know any associates of his, family members, friends, roommates, and if there are any in the United States, did any of them come forward through the process of this investigation?
No, not at this time. This evolved extremely quickly. We've been at this for 6 days. And so here we are, and we now identify who the person is. We're about to make an apprehension. As I stated earlier, he took his own life. But that's all part of the investigation that will continue about him.
Go ahead.
Okay, so President Paxson, Chief Farrow said he had no known criminal history that you know of. You were asked about possible mental illness while he was here. When he was at Brown, did he have any grievances, disputes with anyone? Any problems, any disciplinary issues, any problems at all that were documented?
Not that we know of at this point. I mean, again, these are very, very old records, you have to understand. We learned about this very recently. And I think going forward, as we want to learn more, we will cooperate with the investigation to give them the information they need.
Go ahead, in the white shirt.
Hi, Brittany, WCBB. This question is for Colonel Perez. You mentioned that Claudio was the primary suspect, primary focus from the beginning. If that's the case, can you elaborate more on why there was someone else detained initially? and the lead that led you to that person to being detained initially, if Claudio was the primary focus from the beginning?
Yeah, so.
And I have a follow-up.
Sure, Brittany. Great question. So we have received a tip about that first person. We have received a tip about him wanting to get a permit to carry a firearm. And that led us to also learn that he was a person who potentially could be, it was just where he was denied and then he went to another department and the descriptions led us there. So we had it vetted through. Obviously, the FBI responded, followed through that whole tip, ended up finding the person, taking him to custody, finding him with 2 firearms, with a laser. And so it took a while for us to be able to rule him out. But it was a tip that came in. And as I stated earlier, as soon as the call came in, it was all hands on deck. And there was nothing that we were just going to say that is not anything that had to do with it, with this case. Obviously, we wanted to make an apprehension, and we went after that. So.
Yeah, I just want to, if I could just jump in here, Mayor, I'm sorry to do that, but I think I heard you say that Mr. Valenti was the suspect from the start. That
Primary focus.
No, he became the primary focus yesterday at around this time. This name was not known to us until yesterday. So when our cooperator came in last night, we were able to track the car, get the name, and then we were in the position of today, do we push that name out so that you can help us find this guy, or do we think we know where he is? And so that was the balance. That was that back and forth analysis in our minds, collective investigative team minds, was going on today. But his name did not come to us until yesterday. As I said yesterday, until you have the name, which we did not have until yesterday, after our press conference together, that's when this thing heated up. As soon as you have a name, I believe you can find anybody in this country. And the fact that this team was able to do it in around 24 hours, I think is a tribute to them, their hard work, around the clock, to do exactly what we have been talking about doing, which is how long is it going to take? And it took, roughly 5 days. And that's a tribute to them.
Brittany, if I could just clarify further on that. So what I meant, obviously, it was that the image that we released within hours of that person of interest that was walking on Waterman Avenue around the corner, that was sent out within minutes. That became a primary focus of the investigation of that person of interest. Yes.
If I may, my
Please.
follow-up. I believe it was that the last address for Valenti was in Miami.
Correct.
Have law enforcement in Miami been notified? Are they searching this last address for any potential evidence?
No, Brittany, absolutely. Yes, that address, I believe, was one that predicated in 2001. And so absolutely the law enforcement agencies, both federal and local, were notified of that. They also went to that residence as well, also talked to the individuals that was at that particular residence to see if they had any type of connections or associations with Valenti.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
On the way back.
Question for Coronel Perez, I'm sorry. For Univision in Spanish candidates, what's next? Do you have any leads on the motives? Como acaba de preguntar la colega, ya registraron la vivienda en la Florida. ¿Qué es lo que viene ahora? Si es que saben cuál fue su motivo para matar a esa persona.
Sí, vamos a seguir. So the question was, what's next, right? What are we going to do next? And so la respuesta es que vamos a seguir, obviamente, trabajando con las organizaciones federales y también entre nosotros buscando esa inteligencia de quién es esa persona, qué motivo lo trajo aquí a la ciudad de Providence a cometer esta tragedia, este incidente. Pero eso va a tomar tiempo verdaderamente y vamos a tener que averiguar y averiguar más para ver qué fue el motivo que llegó a esta ciudad.
¿Tienen alguna lista de qué podría haber sido? ¿Qué es lo que van a estar buscando ahora?
No, hasta el momento no. Esto obviamente, como les acabo de explicar ahorita, lo identificamos hace poco.
Go ahead. Right there.
So it was the financial records that the federal agency followed through and through the investigation that led us to learn that this person had rented there, so a storage unit. And so we responded immediately, and we found that the vehicle that we were looking for of interest was parked there.
Just one follow-up here.
Kate, go ahead.
Chief, can you speak a little bit more to that, again, identification of the vehicle of interest and the person who this the witness who provided to you the vehicle? Can you walk us through how that vehicle of interest entered the investigation? And then I have a follow-up.
Correct, yeah, it was part of the tip that was posted actually, and then also the tipster had called and had stated that this individual had a fob and was trying to enter a vehicle that was parked on Benevolent. And so because of that, we obviously knew there was a vehicle and there was a description of a vehicle. When we brought him in, he collaborated further on that vehicle. We put it out through Flock, the description of it, and we learned that within that time period, there was only a certain amount of vehicles that came up with those description fitting it. So our detectives obviously stayed on that and ended up finding this vehicle with Florida plates, and that's how we ended up with that specific vehicle. Then we had learned that the vehicle also potentially could have changed their plates, and as I stated earlier, we were able to find the vehicle on Flock, actually get the actual plate, learn that it was a car rental, which brought us up to learn that that we needed to learn more at the rental place about the individual, which we did, and then further later. We find out, again, doing all the work that they did upstairs, I think it was tremendous if you had a chance and an opportunity to see how much work was put in, because it was bits and pieces of information. It's almost like putting a puzzle together. You only have just a few pieces, and you're building it. And that, later on, led us with the financial records to learn that he rented a storage unit in New Hampshire, and that's why we ended up.
Kate, your follow-up. To that one for the Chief or the Attorney General. You mentioned, again, weighing that public interest versus the information that was available to law enforcement at the time, as this person, again, considered armed and potentially dangerous, was out there. The chief just spoke to license plates changing on a variety of moments, if you will. But was it too fast-moving? Talk to us about weighing again that providing information to the public with an armed and dangerous individual and vehicle use that involved multiple license plates and your decision not to sort of real-time inform the public.
Yeah, so we knew last night, who this guy was and that he had rented a car in Boston. So the question becomes, is he going to return the car to Boston? We got information he might return it to Connecticut. He didn't return it at all. But when we thought he might be returning it to the information, to the locations, we wanted to try to take him without him knowing we were coming. As soon as his name gets out there, he is going to be even more in the wind. And so the question becomes, if you think you might know where he is, right, eventually you find the storage unit, right, so you're following that up. But initially you think he might return the car to Boston on Atlantic Avenue, I believe, or in Connecticut, perhaps to board a flight somewhere. You're weighing, can I take this guy because we know where he's going to be, and not alert him that we're coming. And so I would say this afternoon, we were going back and forth on that. But as the FBI and the ATF and our other partners, Providence Police, State Police, developed evidence as to where he was, ultimately in New Hampshire, we decided to pursue to that location. And there we found the car with those multiple plates that we were looking for, a Florida plate and a Maine plate on top of it.
Right there. Go ahead.
That DNA evidence, where was that tested? And also the firearms examinations. We have some trouble with the state lab here. Where were those?
I just wanted to touch real quick, and I know ATF is going to be able to answer you that, but that's a great question, Mark. And the reason for that is because when the incident first happened, it was our BCI unit that responded and collected that DNA and protected the integrity of that DNA and sent it out.
Thank you. The evidence collected, the DNA and the firearms were sent to the Connecticut State Police Lab. They had the best local capabilities to handle that type of evidence and do those type of examinations.
Mark, do you have a follow-up? You're good.
Thank
you. Wheeler, go ahead.
So is there an understanding of how he got to get the rental car in Boston, or what his movements were in the days and weeks before the shooting?
So if there's an understanding how he got to Boston to rent the car, is that?
Yeah, where was he in the days and the weeks before this?
Yeah, so we're not sure about that, obviously, because we all started acting on this investigation when the incident happened, and that's when we started to follow through to learn more about it. So.
And remember, we didn't have his name until last night, so I think we'll know more about his movements as we're able to track that name. But the critical thing was, once we knew his name, was where is he right now? certainly, going backwards, we're going to want to know how he got into the country, when he got here, and all that. But today's mission was get him off the streets where he poses a danger to Rhode Islanders and ultimately the people of New England.
How close was law enforcement to him when he took his own life? Were they closing in on him? Were they minutes away, seconds away from him?
Yeah, I don't think we know that yet. I mean, I think there will have to be a autopsy done to figure out when he took his life. What we do know is that he signed into that place, but we didn't see him coming out. So I would say at that point, I think, the instinct, at least that I had, was that he had taken his own life. But certainly, if he came out, he would have been arrested. I mean, he was, that site had been secured by the FBI.
Go ahead, right there. Please.
You mentioned shell casings in the hallway. Did he start in the classroom and then move to the hallway? Can you elaborate?
It looks like as soon as he entered, he started firing. We found over 44 rounds that were firing to the classroom, and that's all actually listed in the affidavit. I really want to have some respect for the family, for the victims and the students. I think that there is no reason for us to stand here and re-victimize anybody. If I was a father and I'm watching right now, I think it would re-victimize me even more. So I really want to pay some respect on some of the questions that you asked.
Did the gun jam during the shooting? Did the gun jam during the shooting?
I'm going to end with one last. I'm going to end with one.
How much money it cost this investigation? Brown going to reimburse the money to the city and the state, and she going to give some money to the gentleman, they give the license plate number, the homeless person.
So
I think Brown deserves to give money to that person.
Thank you for the question. I will say I can't speak for other agencies. On behalf of the City of Providence, we have not yet assessed what the cost of this investigation. Let me finish my answer. We have not yet assessed what the cost. Ronaldo, we're done. Okay. Listen, one last positive announcement. As has been said multiple times, the investigation continues. I know there's lots of question around motive and otherwise. The individuals here are still hard at work. Yesterday we gave an update with respect to the survivors. I'm happy to say that one condition was upgraded and now all 6 survivors are in stable condition. It is important to not lose fact of the fact that 6 people are still in the hospital who I know would welcome our prayers. This has been a traumatic moment for our community. I hope that today's announcement starts the healing process and provides some closure for that. As the governor, I think, very eloquently stated, lots of people are going to leave town today, but the rest of us will all still be here, and we're going to have a long road ahead. And I know that what we do best as Rhode Islanders is support one another. I know this community will support one another to move forward after the worst act of violence that any of us can remember. The press has played an important role in helping us push out information and get to this moment today. We're very grateful for all of you. I'm sure some people will be willing to talk after the press conference. Thank you all for your time.
Has President Trump reached out to anybody on the team to congratulate them?
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thanks. Governor, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, sir. Thank you. Governor, thanks.
Thank you, General.
Thanks.
General, can I just get a clarification on 2 things? The roommate, which one was the roommate? The MIT professor or the professor that had the class? The MIT professor? They said that they were roommates or friends.
I don't know a lot about that part of the background.
Okay, and you were asked a question and didn't really give an answer. Was he homeless or was he living in a
Yeah, I don't really want to get into that.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't want to get into those circumstances.